We are going to start the HATC meeting at 9:30. This is an official call of the meeting to order. Can we have a roll call, please?
Chair Cheryl,
Present.
Vice Chair Jimmy, Commissioner Wilmer,
Here.
Commissioner Rebecca, Commissioner Jan.
Have a quorum.
Thank you. All right, is there anyone desiring to discuss or comment on items directly related to the HATC's business?
Not that I'm aware of.
We're gonna move on to item number 3 on the agenda. Can I, is there an approval of minutes for the June 1st, 2023 regular meeting?
No second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Moving on to item number 4, CEO Executive Director reports.
Yes, we'll start with the voucher programs and we'll see.
Good morning. So actually this team right here is in preparation for our COC pre-monitoring audit that's going to be happening at the last week of July. There's a lot of preparation for that, a lot of documentation that needs to come through. So that is our main goal this month, is to get that and get through that. We're also closing out our COC grant, which ended 6/30. So that just means that we're going to be looking at all our payments, making sure we've captured everything. Also, there's another big item that's coming up that we will be presenting to the board. It's the MTW annual plan that should be to HUD in October. So it needs to be published by the beginning of August. We have to have a 45-day period of comments from the public, and then we will present it to you all for approval. And then also we are working on filling the special project vouchers, which are the mainstream and the NEDs. That's what we're working on filling right now. But that's the voucher program.
Christina, I know there was some question about what CMAP was and what the MTW plan now represents. Maybe you can explain to the board, like, what the difference between the two are and how HUD sees us in terms of the success of the program.
So CMAP is a self-certification process that every housing department has to do, except if you're MTW. So CMAP there's about 14 or 13 indicators, I believe, that you have to assess. And of those indicators is pulling reports, doing quality control, and making sure all the processes are done. Then we score ourselves based on those reports that we pull, and we send it over to HUD. HUD then accepts our self-certification and says, okay, we're great. And then we go about our normal. The thing with CMAP is you also have to report into what's called the PIC system into HUD, and with MTW, you actually don't have to, because there's so many waivers and so many different ways that we could operate the HCV program that would completely go against what the PIC rules are, which is submitting an annual re-exam every year. We don't have to do that with the MTW process. So we opted not to have a CMAP score, but what we did do is we have to do something similar in-house, which I already do, which is quality control. So every October, I go through a similar process of self-certification, pull reports, quality control them, identify deficiencies, and work with staff. But it's not something that we have to submit to HUD, and it's not something that we have to report to HUD in any kind of capacity.
Is it posted somewhere?
CMAP is no longer.
No, your quality control.
No, ma'am, it's just in-house discrepancies that we identify within staff, and then we identify, and then we train, and then we correct them. It's not a score that we get.
Yeah, if you identify there may be some deficiencies or issues, what do you do then?
We correct them, so we have time to correct them, right? So we identify them, we meet with staff, we have staff meetings beyond what I can explain, but we identify them to identify what we need to be trained on. They're typically very minor corrections that I've noted especially in the past year. It's usually something associated with something like minor, like a human error that we can correct pretty quickly. I haven't seen staff has been with me for quite some time. I haven't seen any major deficiencies that would need to be addressed, like via training or something like that.
So I think maybe the question is, what is HUD's involvement in the success of the HCV program in terms of what are they looking at now? Because before they would look at the CMAP, so
Right.
what are they assessing us?
Two things, yeah, two things. So with moving to work, we have to, Patrick and I actually participate on I think it's quarterly that they.
Yeah.
Quarterly, research evaluation team contacts us, they are contractors from HUD. And they go through an extensive list of questions with us about what's working and what's not working. This is just research and evaluation that they're doing to compare to other MTW agencies and other non-MTW agencies to see what's working. If you remember with moving to work, it's about designing something different and innovative, right? So that we all know the housing choice voucher program isn't exactly perfect and it doesn't work well, right? The way it operates. So moving to work's whole purpose is to let us design something different and present it to them so that maybe we can be part of the change in the housing choice voucher program. So that's one, the quarterly meetings that we have, Patrick and I have with the research team. And the other thing is this MTW plan. So part of this MTW plan is they ask a lot of questions. This is going to be my first going through it. So I can't tell you what those questions are yet. But there's a lot of questions that are going to be asked about what was working and what's not working as far as our initiatives and what we're planning to do and why we haven't done some things. So that's also research and evaluation that they compare to other housing authorities to determine if this is something other housing authorities can use.
So what about comments? What type of comments do you typically get?
Comments from the MTW office? We haven't. Yeah, I mean, this is our first really go around this year.
Yeah, I mean, that's the beauty of the MTW, unless you really design it according to your needs. I will tell you though, the biggest thing that consistent across all MTW and non-MTW agencies is the idea of voucher utilization. So you are able to, that is something that's tracked, you know what I mean? Like, are you spending the money, are you utilizing the vouchers? Are you spending the, are you maximizing the use of the vouchers? They have a tool they use called the 2-year tool, which helps you project like how the voucher utilization and figure out if you should overlease, you should underlease, that sort of thing. And here I'm talking like Christina, but the reality of it is that's their primary means of seeing how well the program is doing outside of looking at your plan and figuring out if there's a need to tweak it. But it does give you quite a bit of flexibility, and that's why the designation is so special, because of all of the flexibility.
I want to add to that, Patrick. So the 2-year tool that he's speaking of, I actually meet with the HUD field office every month. That's just me. That's not anybody else. And we sit down and we look at projections. We look at money, what's spending, what's in reserves, what are our numbers, what are our special project vouchers, what's our needs. And we discuss what can and can't we do. And we look at projections for the next 3 months, but we do this every single month. It changes,
Right.
even from 1 month to the next. So although we can project 10 vouchers that we can issue this month, it just always changes. I just got told I can only issue 3. So it just changes. But I also wanted to say regarding what Patrick was saying. So they measure 3 things, and I don't have it in front of me, but it's with MTW, they measure housing choice, financial stability. I can't remember the third one off the top of my head. But what they're looking at in our research and our evaluation and our 2-year tool, like Patrick was speaking of, is that we are utilizing everything we can and that we're funding the same number of clients that we would have if we were not the MTW. Because one of the things that we added to our MTW was landlord incentives. So are we spending more money on landlord incentives and not housing as many people as we were doing prior to MTW? And that hasn't been the case. We have not seen that influx of money being used. So there's a lot of research, more research, I would say, going behind our MTW status than a comment or a score or a, that kind of stuff. Yes. Yes.
How do we determine, the goal is to move people from the voucher program to work, the way I understand it, is that correct?
No, moving to work. Yeah, the moving to work status is not necessarily moving them to work as it's called. It's about, so how do you determine? So one of the things is getting them, self-sufficiency is another one. And that's the third one, I think. So how do you promote self-sufficiency? So one of our MTW initiatives that we have not been able to implement is that clients do not need to report their income if there's an increase in income during a research 12-month period. They do not need to report that increase. They can keep it until the next recertification, then we recertify them based on whatever income they have at that time. So what the MTW process hopes, right? This is the expectation, is that these people save money, that they get off the program, and that we can release a voucher to someone new.
That's what I was thinking at some point down the line.
Correct, yes. And we do have a initiative that we have proposed to HUD that we will implement. However, two things are writing on that. One, that HUD is not ready for it. They have, the system that they have where we can report that is not ready, and they've been very transparent, and then our software isn't ready for it because HUD isn't ready for it. So we have not been able to implement that this year because of that. I am going to still pursue that in the next year or whenever HUD is ready for us and the software is ready for us.
So what's your goal in tracking those people as they, at some point, you're gonna have to move, hopefully they go to work in a couple of years or 3 years or whatever.
Well, not necessarily work, but hopefully that they become self-sufficient,
Self-sufficient.
right? And so that is the goal, but that's not something that we can enforce.
Yeah, it's a little more semantics.
Yeah,
I mean, when they created moving to work, that is what the thought process,
Yeah,
but
that's what
as you know, there's been pushback regarding the notion of requiring folks to have a, for there to be a sunset, right? So it's never come to fruition. So the way of self-sufficiency means like you become more financially independent with the thought that you would be moving on, but it's not, or there's no sunset at this juncture, depending on, the
yeah.
next couple of administrations, who knows what might happen. But the reality of it is for years, it's been that notion that you will become more independent with the notion of moving forward. But
that's where I interpreted.
Yeah.
Yes, that is, it sounds very much like that's.
But I'm trying to say this then, I'm on a voucher.
Right.
I get somewhat of a job, become self-sufficient, and at the time I was at zero income. On
Now you have 50,000.
and then and now I'm at 25,000.
Sure.
At some point, that is considered self-sufficiency to a degree, even though Austin's area of
Right.
income is much higher.
Right, right. But we can't determine their needs, right? So self-sufficiency to them might not mean getting off the program. It might just mean that they get a car and they, handle some medicals, right? We can't determine what their needs are. But I will say to this board is there's a lot of things that are already being done in the moving to work PHAs across the United States. And so they provide us a template. Initially, they brought us a template with all these things that we could possibly do that people are already done and have worked. One of the things to what you're speaking of that we could do, I'm not opposed to it, it's definitely a board decision, is to limit a person's voucher to 10 years, to 15, to 20
Or
years.
reduce,
I'm sorry?
or reduce it, the amount that increase the.
No, that's a
That's
calculation.
separate, yeah, that's payment standards. No, this is just limiting a person's voucher
Yeah.
time on the program so that we can.
And right
filter.
now, there's no limitation.
There's
We
no
have
limitation.
But. like I
Yeah,
said,
some
everything-
agencies have been going through that process and very few have been successful in getting that, to sunset just because of the pushback from the support, community, advocates of them not happening. So you come sort of close to that by, trying to encourage more financial independence, let's say it that way, and then with the hopes of it moving forward to that. But,
I get it, so it's not enforceable, but if I wind up getting $50,000 a year, then at some point, it should end.
There is a HUD regulation that after 6 months of, for example, if you're getting 50,000 and you're paying all your rent, which is $1,000 a month, after 6 months of doing that, we automatically terminate the voucher. Yeah, so there is already a HUD regulation in place for that has to be followed.
But there's nothing that enforces that they share that information. So they can always say, I'm not getting $50,000, but they cannot share that.
So we actually have some checks and balances for that. So there's something, not in the COC program, but in the Housing Choice Voucher program, we have something called an EIV report. And that EIV report is enterprise Thank you. I don't work with them, staff does. So what that does is, so the IRS and as Social Security, all these ways, they have to report into
Oh,
this
yeah.
HUD system. And it's a little delayed, it's like by 2 months or a quarter or something like that. But we get that information. So the same thing happens. We still have to assess for fraud. We still can terminate for people committing fraud, all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a question. First off, super excited about where you are with the moving to work and hearing more and more about it. And I think you can tell from us that we're all really sort of fans of constant, consistent quality improvement measures.
Yeah.
And so the more we can hear about, you know, what you're learning or what the standards are and how you're working to actually align yourself, because this is your time through the shoot, first time through the shoots too.
Yeah.
So not only is HUD just kind of getting up and rolling, we're getting up and rolling,
For sure.
and we're really interested in that culture of constant quality improvement
Yeah,
and
would it-
want to bring to us.
For sure, thank you. Would it help if maybe, I can't do this now, it's a very busy couple of months, but maybe towards the end of the year that I do a very general summary of all these things that we could do, so you guys can look at it?
Yeah.
Because it's a very cumbersome document, and I hate for you guys to have to sit there and read the whole thing. I can
And I
write
would
it.
not want it, I mean, personally, I think that if we can have a separate, like, maybe like a training
Okay.
session.
Yeah.
You know,
I can do that,
and not consume it with the
Yeah.
board, that way we can ask questions, so, yeah.
for sure. I can
Something
plan
like
for that later in the
October,
year.
November.
And in the interim, if there's videos, training videos on this topic you want to
There's
share.
a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, well, go
There's
ahead
a
and
whole website to
curate
develop
it
too.
a little bit and give us the best one.
Yes,
And
I
we-
will.
I was thinking as you were talking, maybe what we do, see, we'll create a folder on Boardable. For MTW, you can just,
Good idea.
you know, put some items in there, whenever at your leisure, you can.
Yeah, if you wanna go in there, and then I'll highlight it with maybe a PowerPoint
We'll
presentation.
create a folder in Boardable for,
That'd be great.
MTW slash.
That's great.
Awesome.
Thank you.
You.
Okay, Christina is,
That's it for the HCB. I don't know if we need.
okay, all right. We're gonna report on,
How did we do on the support service budget line item?
Yes. Were you, Debbie,
the
able
next slide,
to-
I think.
Yeah. We have the final.
What do you,
Oh,
where do you,
it's in the report, actually.
yeah, it's in the. And it might have been just one of those single documents.
Oh,
CSC supported?
So this is our final. And I say final tentatively because I'm gonna let Olivia, she ran with this. I'm gonna let her kind of speak to that, and then I'll chime in with a couple of comments after.
Okay. So it's been, despite what the numbers may show, it's been a busy past 3 months, and we were able to help a lot of people. Some of the big points were like the food for clients, the application fees, bus passes, and moving expenses. Those, we were able to help quite a few people, and I predict that we're gonna continue to serve more and more people as we continue the recertification processes, as we continue to build rapport with some of these clients. I think those are our biggest, what we will focus on. Some other things that we would like to focus on, but we're still working with Echo and HUD, are the credit expenses, and then, you know, just kind of, I think that was kind of our biggest barrier with all of it, is navigating what exactly we can help these clients with, because it's not as clear cut as you would like it to be. So we're still in conversations with that as well. And then we project in the future to continue to help with job training and mental health services and legal services as I've seen that need arise. It's just a matter of, some of those things take time. They take building rapport with clients to really provide those resources as well. So we're still just trying to navigate it all, but I think we did a pretty good job with the time that we had with all of that.
And so it looks like you have, what,
About 16,000, I think, right?
Yeah.
About 16. So there's about 5,000 that I'm working with the HUD field office to determine if they'll allow us or not. So we ran into some situations with credit issues on reports, and clients aren't able to lease units if those credits are really bad. So on the regs, it says you can resolve credit issues. We took it as resolve the credit issues. When I spoke to the field office, they said resolve could mean talking. I said, okay, well, that's not clear. So I had to submit a lot of documentation to them as to why I think they should support this. And I'm waiting to hear back. So I'm maybe, right, about $5,000 from there. Other than that, there was some medical expenses that didn't show through. We were projecting some oxygen tanks and things like that that needed to be given. I think, was it Integral Care that came back in and did that, or?
Their insurance actually covered the oxygen machines, and then we recently met with Integral Care as well,
Yeah.
and so we're kind of partnering with them on a bunch of expenses as well. So they're able to also help the clients, then we're referring out, so there's a lot of that as well.
Because we have to keep in mind that Integral Care is our match provider, so we have to have 25% in-kind support services through Integral Care, so we do need that to still happen as well. So they kind of came in and finished out some of the stuff that she was already taking care of. But yeah, I mean, it's a good start, I think, you know, it's a good start. We were able to purchase the vehicle, which is one of the biggest items that we had. And she's now able to navigate through that a little bit better. Yeah, promising.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, did you speak to homeless initiatives? Or is that somebody else that's gonna speak about that?
Homeless initiatives. So the COC is part of the homeless initiatives, and then we have a homeless preference. I don't know if you're aware, but we have a homeless preference on our waiting list. Actually, our waiting list is not moving right now. We don't have any vouchers to get.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Oh,
so.
all right, thank you.
Mhm.
All right, let's move on to item B. Mr. Cruz.
Hi, good morning. So a didn't update there. Well, it's almost pretty much the same thing, really. Now, instead of working with FNH, I did contact TVC Services. TVC Services is a general contractor. They will be actually helping me meet the deadline for TDHCA for September. I met with him on Monday. He did give me some great ideas so that we can get all this done by September. I'm waiting for his quotes, but I should get it by the end of this week. Also, in regards to Maynardtown, those stairwells are still there. I am having also TVC Services going out there doing the temporary shoring now. We moved away from AES consultants. And then Carlton actually took over July 1st. I've been speaking with Cynthia, the regional manager there, as well as Breland, I believe is his name. Yeah, Breland Davis. And it's been a smooth transition so far. We're still waiting for the internet as well as the phone services to be connected over at Eastern Oaks. That was just a delay from Spectrum themselves. It should have been done, but for whatever reason, they still haven't done it. It is going to be completed as of tomorrow, though. So they should be good to go. I haven't had any negative feedback just yet. He's still getting his feet wet, looking at all the properties. Any questions that come up, I'm able to answer them. Same thing with maintenance emergencies. I'm still taking those for the time being. Once the services get set up at Eastern, everything will transition afterwards.
So I want to go back to Maynard because I want to make sure that we are really clear on something that transpired, and this is just for the sake of transparency, right? So all of the tenants are now back in their
Yes,
apartments, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Back in the homes at this point. And so ASD Consultants was the contractor that you contacted to provide the emergency services.
that is correct.
Correct. Okay, and for the sake of transparency, ASD Consultants is owned by Curtis Brown, and Curtis Brown is my spouse. Carlos, how did you come by way of knowing or coming in contact with ASD Consultants?
It was through Supra. Supra actually pointed me to somebody in Haka by the name of Jimmy. They've worked with a couple of vendors, a couple of general contractors with similar work over there. although we had a small period of time to look for a contractor, when things were getting a little too, they were worsening at Vayner, whenever one of the polls actually came out, I had to just contact somebody immediately. ADS, ASD, sorry, Mr. Brown, he was the one that actually contacted me immediately and was able to get that work done. So that's why I was able to contact him. And we went through the entire work just because it was due to an emergency, really. But once everything actually came, once the building inspector passed everything, all the safety concerns, we were actually able to get this new consultant to take over.
I think you said at the beginning of your question that the relocated tenants have returned to their units.
That is correct.
And how long were they relocated for?
For about 3 weeks.
Oh.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions from the Carlos? All right, we'll move on to real estate development.
We're ready.
All right, good morning, Commissioner. Quick update on Eastern Oaks. We received 1.7 of the 2.0 million that is owed from TDHCA. That was the first of 2 draws. The second draw, we are preparing documentation for submission. It'll be just a little bit over 200,000, and that amount will close us out with the funding for that project. So we're happy to have that money in the coffers and ready to move on. I expect to have the submission made through our consultant by the Friday of next week, so that TDHCA can process the second draw. Let's see, over on to, are there any questions on getting the payments from TDHCA or Eastern? All right. Mayortown, trenching work has begun. It began last week and at the end of the week. And this is for the foundation and underground plumbing. And they are already at or just beyond, I'd say by today, 50% complete with the trenching. The contractor's finishing up some documentation requested by the city. That should be finished by the 14th, but work will continue. The first construction draw we anticipated would be at this, would be submitted in June. However, there were some delays in some of the dirt work that had to be done, just by the fact that the site is so small that it took a little extra work to bring all the dirt in and then start working it. So we expect that the first full construction draw to come at the end of July, but the architect has already been out to the site and made it and filed a report based on their review of the field. And I continue to go out there each week and visit with the construction superintendent and they are moving the project forward.
Yeah. Keep that area out there was farmland a long time ago.
Yes, sir.
The soil is not totally stable. Engineers are they doing any packing or because that's if it's not properly done, you got a bunch of cracks running all the way through the place and stuff.
Yes, sir. That gumbo out there is very difficult to deal with, and that's why I included a couple of pictures in your board package. One where they had done a complete excavation of where the slab will be down to about a level of 8 feet, and then they came back in with kind of site material that should be in place, and filled it with that, compacted it as they went, and they finished that process at the beginning of last week, and now they are out there trenching in that soil. So we have a base that It's not the soil that's out there naturally occurring. It is a soil that is going to be appropriate for that slab to be sitting on and it'll be moving. It'll be a post-tension slab, but you know, as you know, that there's a lot of contraction and expansion of the native soil out there. So the soil that we put down is to counter that action.
Well, and I appreciate that, but also consider the parking lot too, because, when you're doing that, as they finish up, don't let them cut short corners on that too, because.
All right, sir.
That also, we do a lot for the slab, but we forget about the parking lot.
Yeah. We'll watch that.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any more questions for?
Now I'm just on the agenda. Now we had an attachment to our agenda on the TBHCA, deficiencies, even deficiencies.
I understand. Did you speak up?
The TDHCA deficiencies would have been under affordable housing,
Oh,
under
okay.
Carlos.
Because it was attached and we haven't discussed it yet.
Carlos, did you go, maybe you can rehash the deficiencies again?
Sure, we can. Here, let me pull it up myself.
I might be the only one on the board sitting here today that wasn't previously aware of this, because this is dated before I joined the board. So if this is rehashed for all you guys and you've seen it before, I'm
Fine.
It is, but we're just, yeah, we've been, I mean, all of last year, obviously, we're doing for addressing these, so it is,
And we talked about it.
yeah, it's been an iteration. But Carlos, do you want to have with Steve to show what's up on the screen?
Sure, if you want, that's not a problem.
Or what were you gonna show? You were gonna,
I have
Discuss the
nothing
detail.
more specific, it's just in regards to those, and I'm trying to pull it up myself here, so just bear with me. This to show you, those ADA requirements that we'll need. If you go to page number 3, there's, TBC services is going to be, focusing on these, because Armando was able to complete a couple of these, on his own. Oh, I think we have a different one. If you keep going, if you don't mind, because I think you have a more in-depth one, by the way. Possibly around page 10 or so. Right there. So just to note the deficiencies, again, those 88 deficiencies that TBC services is going to be focusing on, it'll be deficiency number 1, having a concrete ramp there located for both of the grills at Alexander Oaks. Deficiency number 2 for the railing. Underneath the railing, there was some another horizontal bar that needed to be at least 4 inches above. That needs to be done. Continue. That same one is another railing. Just if you can see the concrete area, it's too high up. So they do require a railing to be installed there as well. If you continue going, they're gonna actually go into. Because almost all the other ones were done. Deficiency number 13. That was right there. The entrance of that kitchen right there, it was a little too short, if I'm not mistaken, or the height mean space was not measured accordingly to what TDHCA required. So that is another one of the TBC TCs, efficiencies that they will actually focus on. And then I believe the last one, the one that was gonna give us the more trouble was the efficiency number 15. But after speaking with him, instead of actually moving the walls as we had initially talked, he was able to give me a better idea in regards to the counter space that's located by the range. If we're able to shorten it out, of course, then we'll able to get that specific space rather than moving the entire wall and having to move electrical outlets and all the plumbing as well. So he gave me great ideas. Like I said, I'm just waiting for him to give me a quote so that we can get started on these specific ones and then get them done. Since pretty much almost all the other ones have already been completed, I'm waiting for some of the equipment so that we can install the other ADA requirements over at the properties themselves. Just wanted to highlight these items stuff.
What's the possibility of putting a range, or they have a range that they make for that side?
We can purchase a new one if needed. Now, he told me that that was most likely not gonna be the case. In the back of that range itself, there was some of that material was in the back. For whatever reason, it wasn't just, it was just stayed there. So what he can do is just cut it so that the range can go all the way to the back.
Push it back.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, that'll pick up those 4 inches.
Yep.
Okay,
It's about 4 inches or so, but yeah.
yeah,
Just do a recess.
yeah, recess, that'll be much easier.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So just in summary, the ones that you identified today are the only ones still to be addressed. The others are completed.
Yes, ma'am. Some of the other ones, I'm just waiting for materials to get here. Kind of like the efficiency. Efficiency number 5, the room and egress route signage. I'm waiting for those to be delivered to us so that we can install them at the properties themselves. The numbers that need to be having the braille on them, and then same thing with the signage at the for the bathrooms and the office as well. They just need to have braille on them. We're just waiting for those materials to get here so that we can install them themselves.
But the goal, the ultimate goal, if I heard you correctly, is these corrections be made by the end of
September 13th, if I'm not mistaken.
And how many tenants are disabled or on walkers or wheelchairs that are impacted by these?
We have a total, if you want, 5 tenants, and they're spread out through both, Alexander and Summit.
Okay. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Any other questions? For either Keith or Carlos? Move on to finance.
Good morning.
Mine's-
So we do have an audit report now for 2022. It was released probably about 2 weeks ago. So and I can email it to you all shortly after the meeting. We are 5 months into the year, and I'm just gonna brief by exception. I don't, I ran through the financials last time, so I just will brief by exception. I answer any questions. I am working with Carlton Management on the transition of all the property functions to Carlton, which will also include financials too. So they would just be giving us a report at the end of every.
Okay.
So other than that, I don't really have anything, but I can answer any questions.
Okay, was the audit a clean audit?
Yes.
Yeah.
Good morning, and as you recall, I was not able, in the interest of time, last meeting to present my report, so this is an updated version of some things that were meant to have been presented last month. But priorities for the next 30 days, the policy manual obviously was approved by you. And you did have some questions and some requests relating to that, and those have been taken care of, and specifically regarding the inclusion of a reduction in force policy in the manual, which has been done, and the addition of a remote work policy, which was actually already in there. None of us realized it at the time at the meeting a month previously, but those are in there. The document was provided to an employment attorney for review, and I just had an update that we will hear back on Monday relating to that. So stay tuned, and I will provide you an updates for next meeting. Other items here: strategic plan progress reporting, and then additional training and development activity for 2023. And drilling down into the actual report that's in your materials. We continue with our HATC in the community series. The last program that we held was at the very end of May relating to Mental Health Awareness Month. And we are moving through the year. I believe we have 2 more this year. Is that correct, Patrick? Yeah. So we will keep everybody posted on the plans for those. Website upgrades. I'm not sure if you had a chance to look at the new website. It looks great. We had an intern that we now engage on a consulting basis after his internship ended. That is a fantastic web developer, and he's you might have connected with him. His name is Kevin. He is very fast and he's very good, and he's completely redesigned the main HATC site as well as the new SHFC site, and he's working on the separate foundation website. So very excited to be working with him. Any updates that we request him to handle on any of the sites, he does right away. We don't have to submit a support ticket as we did in the past with the previous consultant. So generally everything's really improved there.
One.
Yeah.
I know at one point, Evelyn was looking at getting a level of consistency in our description. The last time I checked the website, those updates weren't made. Is there still a plan to use?
Are you talking about the bios?
Yes.
Yeah, Patrick and I will need to discuss that separately. I'm not sure where she was.
Correct, yeah, I mean, we need to figure out, it probably needs to be sent out again, the template, because we didn't get all of them back. And you're right, that there's an inconsistency with this description, so we'll just have to
Yeah, that is.
send that and collect that data.
We'll absolutely make that happen. And we are generally aware of that. So thank you for reminding us on that.
The other person that the relationship with the county, we still have technical support through them.
Just for our IT,
Just for
or our,
production
our technical support, our devices, even though we purchase them, they have to go through the county process for security, which is really a good idea anyway. You know, it's a little bureaucratic, but it keeps everything safe, and they handle all our tech support. And we've really had to rely on them quite a bit lately.
So he doesn't have to interact with them at all.
No, he does not. He handles the web presence, and he handles the domain registrations and everything else. So, and then last but not least, the foundation. And I had some big news I was going to share with you last meeting, and I will share with you now. We're really excited to announce a partnership with an organization called Big Austin, who you've all probably heard of. They are fairly prominent in the community and provide a wide range of supportive services to other organizations in the area. And we made this decision to work with them in order for them to handle the frontline operations and the tactical stuff for our residents and voucher holders. And the idea being they have a whole team that we can leverage, as opposed to in the past, we've had one individual handling this, you know, on a coordinator basis. And unfortunately, you know, made that role redundant. And if you had met Eric Lindholm, he was handling that position. He finished up here at the very end of May. And Big Austin, the agreement we have with them, officially kicked off July 1. They were doing preliminary work in June to get ready for that. So they are our representatives, you know, providing, and we're able to leverage, as I mentioned, everything they already do, the digital literacy, career development, summer camps, scholarship, financial literacy. They're very big on that. They're really also big on entrepreneurial programs. So they have a real community reach that we had to leverage that. And financially, it made a lot of sense.
Well, the only concern I have is sometimes when we get into those relationships, Big Austin becomes the identifying factor, and I don't want us to be subservient to them.
Totally understand the concern, and we've really stressed that to them. You know, they're working for us, and they are our representative, as they are the face of the foundation out there right now on the front line. And so totally understand your concern, though. We had the same concern, and they understand our position. We're monitoring what they're doing very closely. I'm in touch with them every day.
The only thing I'm saying is, you know, you see a lot of
Yeah.
things with paper and the big bold print at the bottom is Big Austin, but
Yes.
it should always be.
Totally understand, and we were watching for that.
Okay.
So, and if you see anything, tell me about that too.
Thank you.
But
So one of the things that I think would help
Mhm.
is, since we're using Kevin, is any contributions that we make. You know, I'm sure that that Big Austin is gonna want to publicize it, but I think publicizing it on the HATC website,
yeah,
you know, would be beneficial to us as well.
yeah. As a matter of fact, I have connected Kevin with the team at Big Austin, and they're working together
Good.
to make sure that any events, any programs that they're going to be initiating or involved in on behalf of us is put out there on the website. So again, I'm kind of overseeing that, but they are working directly together on that right now. And just one other final comment from me. You recall hearing in my previous reports about we were recipients of 50 Chromebooks from the Boston Public Library, which were bought and paid for with an FCC grant that APL received. We have distributed almost all of them on a as needed basis, or according to needs expressed to us by individuals who are residents or voucher holders. I think we have 3 that haven't been picked up yet, but all the others out of all 50 have been distributed to people that need them in the community. And we're also going to be receiving free tech support from that's also paid for by the library, and also free internet connection services through Austin Freenet. So it's a good thing. We're doing some good there with the computers, and they're all out there getting used. So, and that's all I have.
Thank you. Anything else for us, Steve? All right, let's move on to item number 5 on the agenda. Executive Director evaluation. any discussion that we want to have relative to that, I we know the thing for. Next week. I think it's a joint. HATC and strategic. So, basically, I'm not looking to do much of anything different than what we've done in the past, which is, we're just gonna use the template that we already have for, Mr. Howard to show, what his evaluation criteria are. I do plan to work with Steve, because I think that the numbering system, the rating system, needs to be reversed. Right now, I think it's rather confusing. So, as a basis, we'll work on, doing that. And then, we'll also share information about, the relative distribution of work between, HATC, TCFC, and strategic. So there's a clear understanding on, how Mr. Howard's time is distributed. And I just want to re-emphasize that and reiterate that with the county commissioners. As it stands today, Mr. Howard is an employee of HATC, and we are distributing portions of his time to the other organizations. And I just want to make sure that that's clear to everyone, so there's no misunderstanding. Any other comments, discussion, points, or anything like that?
At our next meeting, or perhaps before the county commissioners court work session, we'll be preparing the election for something for us to.
Can't hear you, can you speak up a little bit?
If there's any, from HR committee or from the chair, if there's any written items for that agenda that county commissioners covered, or if there's
Yes.
ahead of time.
Yes, we will definitely, publish that. Patrick and I, Mr. Howard, sorry, we work on it. Exactly what it is that we discuss. And my suspicion is that the focus would not be so much on HATC, but more on strategic, because I think that's where a lot of the activities and, things are taking place, issues, resolutions, just anything that's involved in that. I think that's where the majority of the time is going to be spent. So I don't know quite yet. I have not seen the order of business in terms of who goes first in presenting to the county commissioners. I haven't seen that.
Correct. And so we did get obviously an initial sort of working agenda. We'll be meeting with the staff to try to flush that out a little more, I guess, for lack of a better term, to make sure it makes sense relative to the time allocated for such. My hope is that we could probably maybe do one organization and the other, depending on how they decide. Right now, they're sort of lumped together, but we're probably going to try to flush out with more specifics. Specifics as it relates to an actual more detailed agenda, but hopefully we'll get that soon.
And over the last couple of years, because we had dual folks on those boards, we allowed the SHFC to Mr. Patrick to spend more time, which allowed some things with HATC to not be totally covered. So in places, and then he was spending more like 50% of his time with SHFC as opposed to contract 30%. We understood the circumstances and allowed them to happen.
Right. So I suspect, quite honestly, from what I understand that there has been over the past year or two, there's been some significant issues on the strategic side. So I suspect that that's where the focus is gonna be. When I look at what has actually happened on the HATC side, some would probably deem a good story a boring story. So, I think that our reports and what we've done and what we've accomplished on the HATC side has been extremely positive. And I think we have a good story to tell in terms of, what we've accomplished and, what we've done, and the staff has done just a stellar job, just across the board. And, issues that we had relative to deficiencies, and, we had a couple of spikes, but those things subsided and they've been resolved. And so I don't see anything pressing or any significant issues that needs to be highlighted and discussed with the county commissioners. And if you all see differently, then please speak up with that. But I think we have a fulfilling story.
Yeah, I think the biggest issue that I think being resolved now is with the facilities corporation. And we have a meeting today, actually, we've been having a meeting once a month to talk about developing a strategy and a process for looking at development activity and how you determine what's appropriate. So more remains in that regard in terms of how that will come about, but we will be speaking again today with the City of Austin Housing Authority and the City of Austin to talk about that in and of itself. But the county also is working toward that end as well, because as you know, the new legislation areas that are outside of the municipality would be seeking county commissioners court approval for the facilities corporation deals. So they are also working with us, working as well on that sort of concurrently in terms of the standards. So Monique Coleman's been designated as the affordable housing or supportive housing person, but we've been discussing kind of
Keep that name on tonight.
Monique Coleman. She's a CDBG program person, but she's also going to be working on the supportive services housing program. So she's essentially their sort of housing person outside of the corporation that does the actual 4% deal. So I think collectively we'll come to a point where we can come to consensus about what's important and how you determine what that looks like. And ideally, we'll all be on the same page with respect to that, because there's a great need out there and there's a lot of work to do. So we just need to figure out the best way to go about doing it. So, yeah, and I mean, some of that we'll talk about there'll be a meeting after this, but the facilities, with the Housing Finance Corporation. But again, there are needs that are out there related to housing, and we just need to do our best job of trying to figure out how to meet those needs. Yeah. So,
First, who can give us a legislative update, a more thorough update as to what's on specifically with facilities incorporated?
well, nothing's happened since Jim did go over last month, but I mean, we could probably try to simplify that, in some bullets. But essentially, I'm going to just say what we were been at. So the biggest difference now, because we hadn't been doing acquisition deals, we were only doing the construction, is that as opposed to 50% of the units at 80% area median income, now there's 40% of the units max would be at 80% area median income, and then 10% of those at 60% income, which is typically what we've been asking for in the organization anyway. And then the other issue is related to the approvals that would need to be sought outside of a municipality, which again, as what I mentioned, is now if it's in the unincorporated Travis County, the ETJ or unincorporated Travis County, then they would seek Commissioners Court approval additionally. Now, there's a lot of other things that have been lingering or contemplated relative to approvals. But at the end of the day, that's essentially it in terms of how it changes the dynamics of what we're doing. The City of Austin and the City of Austin Housing Authority approval for projects inside the City of Austin still remains, and that hasn't changed. That was always been the case. But again, is that the split in terms of the requirement, obviously you all, including the chair who's not here today, have expressed interest in trying to look at greater affordability. And so what we'll be presenting to you all in the near future is proposals related to address, looking at deeper levels of affordability, even beyond the scope of what the law requires. So we'd like to bring that back to you here to some options for what you to look at in terms of what that might look like.
So do they address the concerns that we have with regards to office requests? Revenue?
I was request for wanting us to not. Business.
And funding and additional funding.
Well, the legislation doesn't address that.
They
The issue that so there's two issues. One is projects inside the city, if the facilities corporation were to do it, would be assessed a fee of the total development cost, a percentage, which is being debated as it relates to the amount. And then there's the issue of how viable is it to do projects in the city of Austin versus just focusing on the efforts outside of the city of Austin. From a practical standpoint, it's obviously development activity in the city of Austin is more challenging because there's more development going on and the process takes a little longer. And then there's obviously 2 approvals that you need to seek instead of just 1, which would be the Commissioner's Court, outside of obviously this organization, because we'll be the one sponsoring it. So we're still trying to work through those details as it relates to that, because the projects that we moved forward were all subject to approvals, and no one knew exactly how long that was going to take. And then essentially folks were taking their own, taking their own path to try to figure out how to get that done in this timely fashion outside of us. So that probably is problematic. So in the future, we'll probably direct the path differently, whereby those tentative approvals will probably be gotten before they would actually reach us, so that they won't be this pressure to essentially try to circumvent the process and get it done without a review. And that's essentially what happened. So we approved projects subject to approval, and then folks were like, "We need to get this done. We need approval." So they would use their own means to make that happen, which obviously is what caused the problem. So we're trying to work through all that. We're still working through that.
Other comments? Let's move on to item number 6. Are there any board meeting reports? Moving on to item number 7, it's a new unfinished business. Considerations. Any reason for executive session? This is item number 8 on the agenda. No. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second, all in favor? Aye. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.